Howdy folks, and welcome to the Hillbilly Kitchen. Today we're making bread pudding. Now this is a super simple, super basic recipe, and you can do lots of stuff to dress it up. But this is also one of the recipes that you have requested most since I started sharing recipes with you. And I'm sorry it took me so long to get it up for you, but here it is. Before we get started cooking though, I do want to take just a second and ask you to please subscribe to the channel. If you have not already, go ahead and click that notification bell, like the video, leave us a comment, just say howdy so we know that you're out there watching, and share our videos with your friends. It would mean a lot to the channel's growth. It would mean a lot to me personally, and it would mean a lot to my family. Thank you so very much. Now, for this very simple, very basic recipe, what you need, of course, is bread. And this is some of the leftover beer bread that I made last week for y'all. I cut it in fairly thick slices, probably sandwich slices. I might have sliced it a tiny bit thinner if I was going to make sandwiches out of it, but probably not. And then just cubed it. And this is only about 7 slices, which is about 3/4 of a loaf of that bread. You can use any bread in this. You could use, if you had a big cookout with a bunch of kids and you had some leftover hot dog and hamburger buns, you could even use that. If you've got a half a loaf of French bread left from where you've done a spaghetti dinner or something and made garlic bread out of it, leftover dinner rolls, just anything will work in this. But you just want to cube your leftover bread up, whatever kind of bread it is. The better the bread, of course, the better the bread pudding, because obviously there's a lot here. And I'm using a 9x9 pan. It's a 2-quart pan. You could use a bigger pan, but you don't want it too thin. So anyways, that's like 7 slices of bread, this big, about 3/4 of a loaf of the bread that we made last week. I've got 4 eggs, whole eggs, 4 cups of milk. You want between a half a cup of sugar and a cup of sugar. I have adjusted mine down a little bit. I have about 3/4 of a cup of sugar. It's, you know, you can cut the sugar back. Most recipes call for a cup, but I'm trying to cut that back a little bit, and I know a lot of people are too, so I'm using 3/4 of a cup. And I'm using a few extra raisins. You want between at least half a cup of raisins. I've got fluffed up here, it looks like very close to a cup, not quite, but close. A little cinnamon and a little vanilla. You could also put a little nutmeg in it. A lot of people use nutmeg in it, but just whatever kind of spice you want. Now, I'm going to start by adding some cinnamon to my sugar, and I'm going to save a little bit of my cinnamon and sugar to sprinkle over top when I am finished adding my milk and my eggs into my breadcrumbs. And I'm using about a tablespoon of cinnamon. It is entirely up to you how much you use. A lot of people don't like that much cinnamon in it. They want more of the vanilla flavor. And there are alcoholic versions of this that use both bourbon and rum, usually bourbon. I have always had it made this way. The alcohol would give it a much richer flavor. And if you put the alcohol in your bread pudding, it's not going to, the alcohol will cook off and you will have the rich flavor. But if you make the sauce to go over it, the bourbon sauce, then that's where it will still have alcohol content, because when you make the sauces, you don't actually bring them to a boil, the cream sauces. And you can also make a vanilla cream sauce too. I'm sorry about my voice, y'all. I don't know what is going on with it. Yesterday I couldn't talk at all. I'm gonna add a couple of generous teaspoons of vanilla to this. Y'all know I like vanilla. Spill a little. And I'm going to go ahead and put my raisins in with my breadcrumbs. You do want to grease your baking sheet so that it doesn't stick. And I'm going to spread them out and kind of knock them down in there a little bit. Don't crumble up your bread. Just make sure they're kind of distributed a little bit And if you put them in here, you can pre-soak your raisins too if you want to. But I think they puff up just fine because we're going to bake this 30 to 40 minutes in a 350 degree oven. And those raisins will puff up just fine. But you can pre-soak them. If you know, there's a lot of stuff you can pre-soak them in. But you could soak them in a little vanilla and like half a cup of water. Even put a little bit of vinegar in them and it will help the flavor. It'll boost the flavor. Vinegar does a lot in baking. Just cheap old white vinegar. Anyway, that's good there. I'm just going to dump my eggs in here. I'm not going to worry about mixing them up first because all we got there is milk. And then I want to go ahead and put all of this in here except for, whoops, I didn't get my cinnamon all the way down the bottom. I'm going to leave a little less than a quarter of a cup. I just want a couple of tablespoons to sprinkle over the top to kind of give it that sugary crust on the top. That's about right. A couple tablespoons to sprinkle over the top. And then go ahead and mix that up really well. Y'all, I just made poor Alex's head explode because I put those raisins in there over on the side of the counter and she can't focus in up here good on it when it's all the way on the side of the counter. Sorry, Alex. Okay, now you do want to make sure you mix this up really good because this is going to make a custard around your bread. And if you have clumps of egg in it, you're going to have a clumpy, eggy mess in there. And you don't want that. Now, you very carefully pour this all over your bread and your raisins. And I'm still dripping it very carefully as I can be. And it should fill our pan all the way up so that all of our bread gets nice and coated. Okay, now if you got some of these little pesky ones that are floating a little bit, go ahead and kind of push them down in there. I guess I could use my fork instead of my fingers. But just kind of press them down in there and they'll soak up more of our liquid as they cook. But you want to use stale bread for this because if you don't, then what you're not going to have the chunks of bread in your bread pudding. It's just going to be kind of soggy and mushy. What this is going to do with stale bread is you're going to have the bread texture in there, but then you're also going to have the custard texture of our milk and our eggs and stuff in it. So you do want it stale. And I have seen some versions of this where they soak the bread overnight and all that stuff. But again, that's going to give you one texture and it's going to be much soggier. And that's not really the bread pudding that I've ever had. I've always had it where it has the bread and the custard. All right. That's good. It's all kind of down in there now. And now we'll just add the rest of our cinnamon sugar on the top, and that'll give it a nice little sugary crunch on the top. If you don't like raisins, you can leave them totally out. You could also use cranberries in this or like fresh blueberries. I was thinking this morning about stuff I could tell y'all to put in here, and I was wondering, because it's almost blackberry season, what blackberries would be like in here. If anybody's ever made this with fresh blackberries, leave us a comment and let us know how that came out. Now, while this is baking, you can make a sauce to go over it. You can make a caramel sauce. You can make a vanilla sauce. Of course, you could do a bourbon sauce. All kinds of stuff like that. You can serve it with a little whipped cream. You can serve it with ice cream. You can serve it with fresh fruit. This is basic, so you can do a lot of stuff with it. It's just kind of up to you what you have or what you want to do. Or you can just serve it just like this. Normally, this is all I do. I just make the bread pudding and that's what we have. Maybe while you're making this, put some bacon in the oven with it, and then you've got a little bacon to serve on the side of it. And that is my favorite way. If I really want to do it upright, I'll put some bacon in the oven with it, and I'll have this this sweet and the salty bacon together, and it makes a wonderful breakfast. But that's all there is to it. Now we're just going to stick it in a 350-degree oven for about 30 to 40 minutes until a knife in the center comes out clean. You do want your custard completely cooked. Okay, in about 30 to 35 minutes or so, you can turn your stale old bread into a very delicious breakfast or dessert. And I forgot to mention, instead of the raisins, you can put chocolate chips in this. And if you want it a little fancier, you can also add little cubes of cream cheese in it, which gives it a whole, it brings the richness up to a whole nother level. The possibilities are pretty much endless. And if you don't like cinnamon, don't put the cinnamon in. Use a little nutmeg and just sprinkle it on the top. And then you have just a vanilla cream in with your bread. I like the cinnamon in with it. I like the vanilla and the cinnamon. Probably because cinnamon toast was one of the favorites in my house when my kids were growing up. But, you know, you're making it at home, which means you make it the way you like it. And I love it paired with bacon if I'm going to have it for breakfast. Now, if I'm doing it for a dessert, that's a whole nother story. But for breakfast, I like it paired with bacon because the bacon is salty and this is sweet. If you're doing it for dessert, ice cream, whipped cream, fresh berries, breakfast fresh berries or whipped cream would be good too. It's really very, very versatile, and it uses your old bread, and any kind of old bread will work. So save this recipe. It's one of those recipes, another one of those that got our grandmas through those really tough times, and it'll get us through some tough times too. Before we go, I want to leave you with Genesis 12:3. And I will bless them that bless thee, and I will curse him that curse thee. And in thee shall all families of the earth be blessed. This was God's promise to Abraham. And it is concerning the nation of Israel that came from Abraham. As Christians, we certainly need to be praying for Israel right now, and we do not want to be on the wrong side of history. We need to support them and pray for them and stand up for them. I will put a link in here to the IFCJ, the fellowship. I have donated to them for several years to support Israel, and I trust them to do with my donations what they say they will be doing. If you feel so led to do that, please do that. But if you can't do that, please pray for Israel. Right now, they are facing attacks from all around the world, and it is important that we as Christians stand with them. Just pray. And like I said, as Christians, God's word is clear where we should be standing, and God's word is clear where our support should be. But if you need a recipe, please look for our recipes. For some reason, they are not being recommended. People are not finding them when they search. So if you want to know how to make beautiful, perfect bacon like this without popping it all over your kitchen and popping it all over you, type in Bacon Hillbilly Kitchen. If you need a meatloaf recipe, Meatloaf Hillbilly Kitchen, just put Hillbilly Kitchen in with your search and it will pull up our recipes. They're, like I said, they're not being recommended and they're not popping up in searches if you don't look for us. Biscuits, Hillbilly Kitchen. Buttermilk pie, Hillbilly Kitchen. Bread, Hillbilly Kitchen, because we got several bread recipes. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you so much for being with us again today in the Hillbilly Kitchen. Please don't forget to click like and subscribe. If you haven't already, share this with your friends. Try it. And until next time, remember to put God first.